What's going on, guys, and welcome back to another episode of Career Mode. This is episode number 127, and we start today's episode off with a game against Crystal Palace here at Selhurst Park, and this game was being played before the FA Cup final, which you would have seen in the last episode. I briefly mentioned it at the end of the last episode. This game did get played before the FA Cup final. The reason it wasn't shown beforehand is because there was only one game of the Premier League season left after the FA Cup final, which is the second game of today's episode, which is the game against Hull City. And so the episode would have been really short, this episode, if I didn't show this game as well. So I just thought I'll show it along with this one, because it obviously it didn't matter, you know. The only thing that really mattered in this game was making sure we'd stay unbeaten and that no players would get injured for the FA Cup final and of course the Champions League final to come as well. So that's why I rested the entire team. So it's not like you missed anything, but as you can see, we did indeed take the lead, and it did come through Saido Berahino. And Berahino, I've got to say as well, like it's really weird, but ever since January, when you guys chose me to sign Paco Alcacer for next season, I've been mentioning how Berahino next year is probably going to be like 5th choice striker because of how many great attacking options we have, and he's been scoring goal after goal, and he gets another one here. Very nice finish into the far corner, his 8th of the Premier League this season, and he makes it Crystal Palace 0, West Bromwich Albion 1. So yeah, coming into this game, I did rest the entire side because we had the FA Cup final. Joe Hart was the only one that actually started, of course, in goal, because we had the FA Cup final to come just a few days later, as this game was being played in midweek. And you know, my aim in this game was obviously just to make sure no one get injured, and also that we'd of course be staying unbeaten. And of course, you know, the fact of the matter is, Palace 20th place, already relegated to the Championship. I felt as though we would be heavy favourites coming to the game, and as you can see, it was really, you know, all one-way traffic. Palace did have a good chance, which Hart saved a minute ago, but other than that, we were dominating. But Palace, you know, they probably sensed the fact that we were already concentrating on the next game and thinking about that, not really playing our first team obviously, and they did hit the post here as well. Really good opportunity in the 44th minute, but Wakasso's shot did smack the woodwork, and just past the hour mark here, Madeira is on the ball and slides it through towards Saido Berahino, looking for his second goal of the game, and just like his first goal, opens up his body, finesses it into the corner, this time the top corner, not the bottom corner, but it's the same result. Crystal Palace 0, West Brom 2, another goal for Berahino. So despite Alcacer coming in next year, I'm not entirely sure that I've got any plans to sell Berahino at all, because the guy is just so clinical whenever I do play him, and he did indeed make it Palace 0, West Bromwich Albion 2. So I knew that despite resting the entire team other than Joe Hart, I knew that we'd still make sure we got at least a point in this game against an already relegated Crystal Palace, bottom of the table, and as you can see, we were going to go on to win it. But sadly, we would actually concede in the 70th minute. A simple ball inside, and Yannick Bolassi's finish was here right into the top corner. No chance for Joe Hart, and Palace grabbed themselves what would prove to be a consolation goal. It was actually the last piece of action in the game. But the frustrating thing about that is that it means that we can no longer set a new record for the fewest goals conceded in a Premier League season, because after Balassi scored there for Palace, that meant we had now conceded 15 goals this season, 37 games in. So of course Chelsea have the record for fewest goals conceded with 15. So if we don't concede any goals in the final game of the episode, and of course the season, which you'll see right here is against Hull City, then we will be a joint record holders with Chelsea with 15 goals conceded, but we won't set a new one ourselves, which is a bit of a shame, and that was my fault as well. Again, because I had a weaker team out there, it wasn't really surprising to know that we would concede, but it was still poor defending, and I should have done better. But as you can see, we took on Hull City for the final game of the season, and of course this was after the FA Cup final, which you saw in the last episode. So as you take on Hull City, the game was being played actually with a week to go until the Champions League, but I still decided to rest a lot of the players anyway. Well, the vast majority, to be honest. Only Zambrano and Hart started, I think, for us in the first team. Yep, that's right. So Zambrano and Hart started, but I really wanted to give some starts to academy players: Powell, Madeira, Sarr, and Ashley Bentley. So 4 players in our first 11 being players who we promoted out of the academy, just because I wanted to give, I guess, just give those players a chance to prove themselves, and for me to really play with them on the final day of the season, see if I want to use them next year, or possibly sell them out on loan, see how they do, and whether they're ready for first team football or not. This is a good way to, I guess, a a good way to show off to see whether I have promoted the right players from our academy and whether they will be good enough to play first team next year. But yeah, we did take on Hull City with 99 points accumulated from 37 games. Of course, we've already set a new record for the most points accumulated, and coming into this game, all we needed was 1 point to make sure we would indeed remain undefeated for the whole season. And obviously, with a record already broken in the most points accumulated, achieving this aim would be a nice one to go along with it. As you can see, we did have the ball in the back of the net in the 33rd minute. Danny Ings got the goal. Lovely ball from the right-hand side there, but unfortunately for us, as you'll see, Ings was one of 3 West Bromwich Albion players a mile offside, and that was indeed the correct call. So still West Brom 0, Hull 0, and in the 38th minute, Leandro Madeira went through one-on-one after Maguire made an absolute howler, completely losing track of the ball, but the Brazilian shot was well saved by Jakupovic, and Hull got the ball away. And just after the half-time restart here in the second half, you see Ince denied by a fantastic stop by Joe Hart, desperate not to concede another goal, as we do want to be joint record holders with Chelsea for the fewest goals conceded. Don't want to throw it away on the final day. He made a very good stop there and kept it at 0-0 to try and preserve his clean sheet. And in the 54th minute, Danny Ings goes down his left-hand side, cuts past El Mohammadi with a double step over, keeps on going, gets himself inside and shoots, but again, it's a superb stop by the Hull City goalkeeper, and it is turned behind for a corner. So still West Bromwich Albion 0, Hull City 0, and in the 89th minute here you see Michael Dawson and Myler give the ball away. Terrible from the 2 Hull City experienced players, and the shot by Niang off the bench is well saved by Jakupovic and cleared away. And it was how the game would finish as well. So West Bromwich Albion 0, Hull City 0, which means that we do end the season with that magic treble figures score in terms of points. 100 points accumulated, undefeated season, joint fewest amount of goals conceded in a season. Pretty sure that's the biggest gap between first and second as well. So we end the record-breaking season with a bit of a boring goalless draw, sadly. Not really how our season's been, but at the end of the day, the most important thing was making sure we didn't choke on the final day and kept ourselves unbeaten and undefeated, and that's exactly what we did. So yeah, it's been a fantastic season, without doubt one of the most successful seasons I ever have in career mode. Thinking about it, I think it probably is at least the joint best season I've had for records and stats and trophies I've ever had in career mode in any series I've done on YouTube. So I guess this is probably the best I've ever done so far, so it kind of feels nice to be able to do that, you know, to be able to showcase just how dominant we've been this year, to finish undefeated, set new records and win loads of trophies. It's been absolutely awesome. But this year, unlike last season, we wouldn't need to get to see title celebrations, which is great. Obviously last season we won the Premier League on the final day away at Southampton, and unfortunately there were no celebrations at all, and I mentioned in an episode how ridiculous that was. I can understand why exactly. A lot of people told me it's because I was playing away from home. That must be a new thing, because last year I played away from home a couple of times on the final day to win the Premier League season, and you know, I never had a problem seeing the celebrations, so it must be a new thing, which is kind of weird. But regardless, we got to see the celebrations this year. So Zambrano lifts the trophy, and we are indeed the Premier League winners. We'd known that for like the entire second half of the season, because every other team had been poor this season, but regardless, it still feels nice to have that trophy in our hands for a second successive season, and I'm really pleased about that. So only one thing left now, and that is of course the Champions League final, where we'll be taking on Real Madrid. That will of course be in the next episode. That'll be a full live Q&A, so I really hope you look forward to that. But as well, we saw that Joe Hart won goalkeeper of the tournament, no real surprise. Niang won golden boot with 28 goals. The player of competition was Joe Hart. Interestingly enough, he was the only player to get into the team of the season. So, you know, a record-breaking season, top of the table, 31 wins from 38 games, 7 draws, 0 losses, only 15 goals conceded, 72 goals scored, a fantastic goal difference record of 57, and a points total of 100. Yet only one player from my first 11 is in the team of the season. It's weird, but there you go. But still, here's a look at the top scorers, the assists, the clean sheets, and the cards as well for player stats. You can check out how those players are doing. Now, you may be wondering where the final squad report is. That's going to be shown in the next episode. So in the next episode, once I finish the Champions League final with Real Madrid, you'll see the squad report, and you not only just see the player attributes, but also their individual stats for how well they did in all the competitions we've played. But here are the stats of the Premier League regardless. And also as well, we had to pick our England squad too, because something I completely forgot about is that it's the World Cup 2018 in Russia at the end of this season. So I picked my England squad. Unfortunately, Gary Cahill is unable to be selected because this was the final submission date to submit the England squad, and Gary Cahill's injury didn't finish until the next day. So that is just very frustrating. I was 1 day out of using Gary Cahill because, as you'll see, he has a 1 day left on his injury. We can't submit him for the squad, even though he'll be totally fine for the games in the World Cup in the summer. We can't use him because he's 1 day out. That is just as bad luck as it gets, isn't it? So Stephen Corker comes in, the only under 80 rated player in the team though, so that's a very strong squad. But still, as always guys, a big thank you for watching the video. Really hope you have enjoyed it. If you have enjoyed the episode, then please leave a like, and I'll see you for the next episode of Career Mode very soon.